Nobody ever told you that your anxiety isn't a flaw in your character. It's a flaw in your circulation. Not the circulation of blood, the circulation of life itself. And the moment you understand the difference, nothing about your body will frighten you again. There's something happening right now as you watch this. Your breath is shallower than it should be. Your shoulders are slightly raised. There's a tension somewhere, in your jaw, in your gut, behind your eyes, that has been there so long, you've stopped noticing it. You've confused your armor with your skin. We've been sold a story about the body, that it's a biological machine, that when something goes wrong, you find the broken part and fix it. That anxiety is a chemical imbalance, that grief is a phase, that chronic pain is bad luck. What if the body is not a machine at all? What if it's a map? And what if every symptom you've ever tried to silence was actually the map trying to speak? In the 1930s, a man in Virginia Beach would lie down on a couch, close his eyes, fold his hands over his stomach, and fall into what looked like a deep sleep. Then he would begin to speak. His name was Edgar Cayce, and what came out of his mouth when he was unconscious would fill over 14,000 transcripts, diagnose illnesses doctors couldn't identify, and describe in precise detail the energy anatomy of the human body decades before modern science would catch up to even part of what he said. They called him the sleeping prophet, but maybe a better name would have been the man who remembered what we forgot. Cayce didn't call them chakras in the way we use the word today. He spoke of spiritual centers, 7 distinct points along the spine, each one governing not just a gland or an organ, but an entire dimension of human experience. He was describing, in clinical precision, what ancient Indian tradition had mapped thousands of years before him. And here's what stopped me cold the first time I truly understood what Cayce was saying. He wasn't describing a spiritual practice. He was describing a diagnosis. He was saying, when a center is blocked, you don't just feel spiritually disconnected. You manifest it as disease, as compulsion, as emotional paralysis. The body and the soul are not separate systems. They are one map read from different angles. So here's the question nobody's asking loudly enough. What if the anxiety in your chest isn't a mental health crisis? What if it's your heart center, your 4th chakra, screaming that it has been locked shut for so long, it's forgotten what openness feels like? Here's where it gets uncomfortable. Everyone wants to know, which crystal should I use? Which meditation? Which breath work? How many times a week? How long before I feel better? And I want you to sit with this for a moment before I answer any of that. Because the real question isn't what practice will unblock you. The real question is, who is the self that is keeping the block in place? Think about the solar plexus. Cayce connected it to personal will, individual power, the right to exist as yourself. When it's blocked, you feel powerless, invisible, like you're living someone else's life. Now be honest with yourself here. How many of your beliefs about who you are were actually chosen by you? Your sense of worthiness, your relationship to authority, your feeling of whether or not you deserve to take up space in a room. You didn't choose those, they were installed. By parents who were themselves blocked. By a culture that profits from your insecurity. By a childhood that taught you to shrink in order to be safe. The blockage is not a foreign object lodged in your energy field. The blockage is you. It is the part of you that decided at some point that being closed was more survivable than being open. The block is an old decision that you are still honoring, even though the threat that created it is long gone. A child who was punished for expressing anger will become an adult whose throat chakra is constricted, who speaks quietly, who swallows words, who develops tension headaches, thyroid issues, a perpetual feeling of being unheard. That's not a spiritual problem. That's a loyalty problem. You are still being loyal to a version of reality that no longer exists. And the chakra, Cayce's spiritual center, can't open until the loyalty shifts. What the body holds, the mind has refused to feel. And what the mind has refused to feel, the soul has been quietly translating into symptom, into dream, into longing. Every chakra is a conversation your body is trying to have with you. The root chakra, at the base of your spine, Cayce linked it to your survival instincts, your relationship to the physical world, your sense of safety. When it's blocked, chronic fear, financial panic, the constant feeling that the ground beneath you could disappear. Not because something terrible is about to happen, but because something terrible happened once, and your nervous system never got the memo that it ended. The sacral chakra governs creative force, sexuality, desire, the will to generate life. Block it, and creativity dies. Relationships become mechanical. Joy becomes something you remember having rather than something you experience. Move up to the heart, the bridge between your earthly self and your spiritual nature. Cayce returned to this center again and again in his readings. He believed that all true healing of any kind had to pass through the heart, that a body could not fully recover from illness if the heart center remained defended. Think about that, not as metaphor, as physiology of the soul. And then the crown, the place where, in his readings, Cayce described the meeting point between the individual soul and what he called the universal force. Not a God outside of you, a deeper version of you that you keep forgetting is there. You don't unblock your chakras. You stop arguing with your own aliveness. You are not a blocked person trying to become unblocked. You are a living system that is fully capable of flow, that has simply organized itself around protection. The work is not addition, it's subtraction. It's the willingness to put down the story that the closing was necessary. Cayce, in his readings, consistently pointed toward one thing above all others as the source of healing. What he called at one meant, not atonement in the religious guilt sense. At one meant the return to wholeness, the recognition that the separation between your body, your soul, and the living universe was always a misunderstanding. The chakras don't need to be unlocked from outside. They need to be trusted from within. Every time you feel an emotion fully, without running from it, without drowning in it, one of these centers breathes. Every time you speak your truth when it would be easier to stay silent. Every time you rest when your identity insists you should be productive. Every time you receive love without immediately wondering if you deserve it. That's the practice, that is the unblocking. Now, because philosophy without ground is just beautiful noise, let me give you something to actually work with. Cayce's readings consistently recommended 3 pathways for activating the spiritual centers. Not crystals, not rituals. First, breathe into the part of your body that is tense right now. Not to fix it, to be present with it. Cayce described breath as the connector between the physical and spiritual body. 5 slow breaths directed to a specific center is not nothing. It is a signal to the nervous system that the emergency is over. Second, each morning before you fill yourself with information, ask one question. What is my body trying to tell me that I have been refusing to hear? Don't answer it immediately. Let it sit. The unconscious communicates not when we demand answers, but when we create silence wide enough to receive them. Third, identify one place in your life where you are still being loyal to a closed version of yourself, a relationship you shrink in, a feeling you never allow, a desire you've been pretending you don't have. Name it, write it down. That act of naming, that is the throat chakra opening. That is the beginning of flow. And fourth, spend 5 minutes in stillness with this single intention. I'm willing to be more alive than I have been. Not heal me, not fix me, willingness. Cayce believed that the spiritual centers respond to sincere intention the way a flower responds to light. You don't force a flower to open, you give it the conditions. Edgar Cayce spent 40 years in an altered state, speaking truths he couldn't explain and didn't remember when he woke. The irony is beautiful. The man who saw everything clearly could only do so by letting go of his ordinary, waking self. Maybe that's the lesson in all of it. You will not think your way into an open heart. You will not research your way into an open throat. You will not optimize your way into a route that finally trusts the ground. You will, at some point, have to let something go, some carefully constructed version of who you are, some very convincing story about why you can't, some loyalty to a wound that has been mistaken for identity. And in that moment of release, however terrifying, however small, something in you will remember. Not learn, not discover. Remember that it was never about adding light to a broken body. It was always about removing what was blocking the light that was already there. If something in this conversation shifted something in you, even slightly, then stay. Not for me, for whatever just woke up a little. There are more layers beneath this one, and I'll be here going deeper every week. The journey continues below.